The Google Pixel 6 Pro is the much-awaited phone that I have been waiting for to rival the iPhone 13 Pro. And both of these are by far in the same class when it comes to their cameras as the Samsung S21 Ultra. And I had really high expectations when coming into this video where we are comparing all three phones across photo, video, and audio. But I have to say, I'm quite disappointed in terms of meeting these expectations. We do have the Pixel 6 Pro with its larger 50 megapixel sensors, the iPhone 13 with its 12 megapixel sensor, and the insane cameras on the S21 Ultra at 108 megapixels. So today I'm going to show you a side-by-side comparison with each phone, awarding points along the way to whichever comes out on top. Then at the end, we can compare and see what we think of each of these phones and award an overall winner. A quick thanks to my longtime Android friend James, who came out with his S21 Ultra to help me shoot for the day. So join me on our adventure as we spend a day with all three cameras, and we'll take these comparisons in basically the order we shot them on the day. Now, which order do you think they'll come? Well, I'll tell you something. This was not what I expected at all. First, let's talk portrait mode. And here we have three shots taken on it's a bright, but it was a cloudy day, so the light was kind of perfect. And firstly, I would say, quite surprisingly, that the S21 Ultra just hasn't got any detail and the colors just look a bit washed out. You can also see that it's missed the edge of my hood a little and has tried blurring it out, but to be fair, around the hairline, it's really quite good. The iPhone is probably the most realistic in terms of color representation. It also is the best here at pulling me out of the background. It's picked up my hood and only some light misses around the hairline. And the Pixel 6 Pro, I think it's kind of over-processed the image here, but all three images, I actually prefer the Pixel image if I was to go and upload it to social media. It has misfocused a little bit around the edges, but overall the image is quite pleasing, I'd say. Though I would also say that when directly comparing these, it kind of looks like the Pixel has just applied this general blur over the background, whereas the iPhone looks like a more natural blur that you get out of a higher-end camera. So points to the Pixel and the iPhone here, and nothing to the S21. Now, next up is zoom. The iPhone boasts a 3x zoom, the Pixel a 4x, with features to boost that up to 20 times, and the S21 a 10 times optical zoom, which can digitally zoom up to an insane 100 times. Now, on the ultra-wide lens, nothing really to report until you start zooming in on a shot. The S21's higher megapixel count obviously really helping here, with the Pixel 6 and the iPhone by far off the worst. Now, the same can be said for the 1x and the 4x for the telephoto. But you can actually see the difference in colors here. Somewhere between the iPhone and the S21 Ultra here provide the best color. The Pixel, again, seemingly overcorrecting, oversaturating, but that can always be fixed after it's necessary, or you might just like your shots like this. That's just a personal preference. I actually quite like having my shots punchy and contrasty, so I actually dig the Pixel images here. Now, this is where it starts to get really interesting when it comes to zoom. We've now reached the optical limit of the iPhone and the Pixel, so as we zoom in, the furthest we can go, 20 times on the Pixel, and it looks okay, and actually looks a lot better than I thought it would. The detail obviously goes, but nowhere near as badly as the iPhone, which starts just looking like this watercolor painting of some form. The S21 Ultra absolutely beasts this, and not only in this shot, which it's using its optical lens, but this shot is all the way into 100 times. And I'd argue it's actually still better than the iPhone quality. Possibly not the Pixel. This can be seen time and time again in these images. So this comparison shows us two things. One, that the size of your megapixels does matter if you want to crop your images. And number two, the S21 is hands down the best for if you want to just like creep on someone from a distance. Point to the Samsung S21. Now, on these front-facing portrait shots in challenging lighting directly in the sun, the S21 falls behind as it's not able to balance out the image. Though it does a very good job at keeping the sky from being overexposed, it doesn't expose the face properly. Now, the iPhone probably does the best job at bringing the face out, but the Pixel does a better overall job at balancing the exposure of the face with the background. Also, this is the first major difference I've spotted between these cameras now, but the S21 is the only one out of these three that doesn't flip the image on selfie mode. Now, if you notice on the Pixel and the iPhone, you can read the text on my jacket, but with the S21 you can't. Now, depending on your use cases for like the selfie camera, that might be an issue for you, though of course you can always fix that later if need be. It's just not as convenient. Whilst I prefer the iPhone is the image I'd upload to social media, point to the Pixel for producing an overall more balanced image. Now, this front-facing shot was shot the opposite way with the sun directly on me. The iPhone decided to apply some form of weird smoothing effects on my skin. That's a no. Pixel, I think, did a good job, but again, the colors they just feel off to me. Actually, this one I'm going to give to the S21 for producing a more realistic image. Yes, it's a little overexposed on the face, but I'm really not keen on what the other two phones are doing to these images just to counterbalance the sun, so point to the S21. When shooting in normal light with no direct sun, it's an even closer call. The S21 actually picks out the person from the image better than either the Pixel or the iPhone, which has has this slight kind of hazing effect around the hairline. Point to the S21. Audio now. Stood in an empty field on a quiet day, but with a lawnmower in the background, and they all sound fairly similar. There's not much in them at all. This is an audio test from the iPhone. Now you're listening to the S21 Ultra, and now you're listening to the Pixel 6 Pro. However, one thing I couldn't test that day was how good Pixel 6 Pro does in windy conditions. I've tried waiting for a windy day, but other than hanging my head out of a car whilst trying to hold 3 phones, which I really don't fancy doing in case I drop one, the Pixel 6 wins in terms of all conditions audio based on that feature. So points to the Pixel. In landscape and kind of architecture shots, there are some interesting differences other than someone not being able to hold the phone straight. The S21 probably again has the better color representation of what the whole scene actually looked like. The iPhone has oversaturated the grass and the Pixel just looks a little bit washed out. Point to the S21 Ultra here. As we walked into the cathedral, I thought we'd try some shots with less light in them, and we came across these candles, which we shot on portrait mode. And my gosh, did the Pixel and the S21 blow this out of the water. They have great focus, expose the image well, and the Pixel also had a really nice and natural drop off in the blur, whereas the iPhone comes just nowhere close. For me, the S21 wins for its colors being more realistic, but the detail does get lost in the dark areas, whereas the Pixel just made this way too cold, but also has a better overall exposure. Also, it took a number of shots on the S21 to get one that's actually in focus, whereas the Pixel's ability to just tap on any object and track it and apply this portrait mode blur, very, very good. Clear point to the Pixel here. Some more portraits here in lowish kind of light. With the Pixel, you can see the detail, the dynamic range looks good, though I think they really over sharpened this photo as the coat just looks unnatural. The iPhone just missed the whole image. The colors are off, the quality isn't there, and the black jacket is now grey. The S21 is a great image still, but that detail does get lost around kind of the beard and the hood and such, so point to the Pixel. Some video now, and there's some semi kind of low light video here. As you can see, the iPhone seems to be quite blotchy. The Pixel is actually doing a pretty good job, and the S21 feels just a bit washed out again. Point to Pixel. And at this point, we were wondering if there was something set on the S21 that was just washing out all the colors. There was nothing we can find. So if you're thinking that it's a setting on the phone, honestly, it's not. We checked all of that as well. Now back outside again, and let's look at some of the cinematic features in video now with a panning shot. iPhone 13's new cinematic mode in this particular video, it just looks awful with that fuzz around me. But there's also a similar but arguably better experience with the S21 Ultra. But the Pixel and their cinematic stabilisation mode looks great up until a certain point, but then like the images starts falling apart if you look at the trees here. I think these are all 3 pretty bad experiences, and you'd actually be better off shooting in just regular video mode for each, but I would give the edge to the Pixel for the ability to stabilize the footage in camera. Onto some slow motion here, and it's not good. The Pixel looks more and more like the footage was shot on a potato, which made even worse when switching to the ultra-wide footage. The S21 footage almost looked like an animation. The quality is so poor. The iPhone probably had the most consistent experience and best overall quality, whilst still not really that great. I wouldn't really want to award any of these phones a point here because they are far from where they should be, but the iPhone does take the point here. Exhausted from throwing leaves for too many times to count, we headed to the pub for some lunch. Now, I'm not a food blogger. I've no idea how to actually make food look pretty, but here's my chocolate cake. The S21 focus really wasn't that great with half the cake blurred out. The iPhone was better, but the Pixel actually does better at keeping the whole dish in focus, but still gives that nice drop off with the blur behind it. It has over sharpened the image somewhat, but of all of those awful photos, the Pixel is the one I definitely choose to upload, so point to the Pixel. But one thing to note here about the Pixel and the S21 actually is the post-processing, because I found a lot of the photos looked pretty garbage on the Pixel screen whilst taking it. But snap a photo, preview the photo you've taken, and give it a second, and suddenly the image refreshes with all of like the AI image processing stuff done to it, and suddenly the image looks good again. Anyway, also here a quick test of the ability to track focus on objects for photos. See how the Pixel locks focus onto the battery and tracks it. The S21 seemed pretty good too. The iPhone just doesn't do it, which is actually a pretty big fail here. Points to the Pixel and the S21 here. And I also took this shot whilst inside. You can see the Pixel has exposed the whole image pretty well here. The S21 is too dark, and the iPhone has blown out the windows. Point to the Pixel. Standard video now in the forest, lots of detail on the leaves and trees. The light was kind of starting to go, and I was quite blown away with the differences here. Here is the S21 footage on standard video, which looks horrendous. Here is the Pixel footage. Much better, but still quite noisy if you look at the coat and the detail. And here is something I didn't notice until watching it back on my monitor, but look at what happens to the colors when I step out of frame at the ends. It totally shifts the colors. Now here is the iPhone, also a little noisy to be fair, but I felt the iPhone was definitely more consistent. For me, the iPhone is the clear winner here. Now we get to where the Pixel just completely falls apart by trying out the action stabilisation feature, which the iPhone and S21 don't have, but we took along the iPhone to compare here anyway. Now here is the Pixel on the standard 1x lens with active stabilisation enabled, and it gets even worse. Flip to the second lens and try the same thing, and the image totally falls apart, to the point where it actually drops a huge number of frames as it just can't keep up with the processing. Now compare this to the iPhone standard lens, and yes, the stabilisation sucks, but I'd rather this over the significantly less quality of the Pixel. And even the 2x lens on the iPhone still holds up better quality-wise, so the stabilisation sucks on the Pixel. Now here is a side-by-side with the Pixel and the iPhone, and for me, it is no comparison. Yes, the quality sucks on both of them, but the iPhone wins by a mile on apples to apples comparison. I realized after shooting that we missed this on the S21 Ultra, so to be fair, let's award points to both the iPhone and the S21 just to see where that leaves us. Now next, a really random one is lens flares. I've seen so many comments about this online, as it's always been an issue on the iPhone as long as I can remember. But the good news is, they all suck. Out of all of them, actually, I think the iPhone is probably the better one, like marginally better. The Pixel has quite a lot of issues with the image, and the S21 had a more pronounced reflection. So here, points go to the iPhone. Features now, because all of these phones have their assortment of features, and by far, I'd say the features goes to the Pixel as hands down winner. Even though some of them are currently like half-baked, like the stabilization, the features like Magic Eraser that lets you remove things from your pictures at the touch of a button, and interesting features like this feature where you can literally shake the camera and the Pixel will still give you a stable image, can be quite handy. And it's actually quite mind-blowing how you can literally shake the camera in your hand and it's barely noticeable on the finished footage. Action Pan can also give you some interesting like motion blur effects, though it's just purely depends on what your type of photos or videos that you use for your phone for. Now for this instance, I'm going to give it to the Pixel on features, so point to the Pixel. What's not going to win any points is the interface, because on both the S21 and the Pixel, the interface isn't really easily accessible for one-handed use. Now you can alleviate some of these issues by using the one-handed mode shortcut to lower the interface, but some things still pop up in the middle of screen, requiring you still to use two hands. Whereas on the iPhone, I feel they've really thought about the experience, and everything you actually need is kept down the bottom with just a swipe of the thumb away. So point to the iPhone. Also, point of note that the actual interface seemed quite jumpy on the Android phones, with noticeable lags and jumps when switching like between camera lenses, compared to a much smoother experience on the iPhone. Point to the iPhone here as well. And then as the day got dark, some low light photos here of a nearly pitch black room. On the ultra wide, we can see the iPhone is a bit noisy, but the colors were very accurate. The Pixel just fell apart with a blue hue on everything. And the S21, whilst it did have the cleanest image, the colors were just completely off and it couldn't brighten the image as much as the other two. Also, I saw so many times throughout the day, but the Pixel on-screen preview looks horrendous. Like, it is so bad. Honestly, it makes you feel like all of your shots are going to just be just as bad as they look. Now, this is what I saw on screen whilst taking those Pixel night shots. That is not cool at all. Hopefully something that Google can just hopefully fix over time. Switch over to the 1x lenses now, and that story changes dramatically. The iPhone does a really good job with clean colors and a relatively clean image, but it does look like it is daylight. The Pixel still with the odd colors and loss of detail on the sofa on the right, but the S21 definitely a much cleaner image, particularly when zooming in, and the colors were pretty good. I'm actually going to give this a tie to the S21 and the iPhone here, so points to them both. Before I add up these scores whilst putting this video together, my thoughts from spending the whole day shooting with all three of these phones is that the Pixel 6 felt like it should have performed much better than it actually did. Every time we were shooting side by side, it just felt like either the iPhone or the S21 was outperforming it. Unless we look at specific cases like the cinematic panning footage, the S21 looked and felt like every image and every video we took was just slightly washed out. And the iPhone, to me, well, it just felt more consistent throughout the day. But as a lifelong iPhone user, that's probably because I've been using one for so long. So without further ado, the iPhone scored 9, the Pixel scored 10, and the S21 scored just 7. Now, given the iPhone and Pixel are just a point apart, it very, very much depends on what you're looking for in a phone. The iPhone is definitely a better video camera, the Pixel arguably a better camera, kind of still camera, and the S21 an absolute beast when it comes to zoom or needing to crop your images. Next up, go and watch my video around the winner here, the Pixel 6 Pro, to see my thoughts of when I switched from iPhone to the Pixel 6 Pro, or my review of the iPhone 13 Pro lineup here.